Thank you very much, Dr. Shazla Mohammed, for not only arranging this workshop so well, and and also having a close association with us in our work, and not only for this workshop but also in other educational programs, and also other colleagues at Maldives National University with whom we've been working with for quite a long time, maybe about 6 or 7 years. The goals of the workshop, the goals, background, and involvement. I wanted to, take a few minutes to talk about the goals, which is, as it says on, maybe it doesn't say it, but is to bring together the expertise on climate and water, along with junior scientists, so that we could actually, promote the engagement of junior scientists. And also, I think it also helps that we have interaction among the senior scientists also. At least for me, I mean, it's an occasion to learn on topics that actually, it's a wonderful agenda, I would think. In addition, I think sometimes we tend to not have as much linkage between what we know on the climate side and what we know on the water side on an academic perspective. So I think this is not just for Maldives, but internationally, those are two communities, hydrologists and meteorologists. And so there's a lot of linkages, as is, would be clear from, if you just look at the actual physical system that we are working with. I think that's clear enough, right? You can see, yeah. And I guess, so as we can see, the atmosphere, the ocean, the land is all connected in one system. There is interaction, whether it is solar radiation coming in, water cycling through this system, in land, in the polar region, in the sea, and in the atmosphere, and what we call the hydrological cycle. And something that happens in the atmosphere definitely affects what happens on land and also in the oceans. And you will see quite a few examples of that right through this workshop. So the question is, how do we bring the best scientific knowledge and the best hydrological knowledge to help with decision making in the water resource sector, for one. How do you manage your water resources? And then you also want to think about what are the implications for the sustainable use of water going into the long term? What are the policy implications? So the linkage is very clear. When we talk of climate and water, sure, climate and water is related, but it's also the case that they don't exist on their own. It's related to energy, it's related to agriculture, because you want to supply water for agriculture. It affects health in the sense that, for example, if you store water at home, it helps for water supply, but then it could also lead to dengue. And human activity, on the other hand, can be affecting all of these different sectors, and now lately it has possibly been affecting, or for sure been affecting the climate as well. So we need to understand the whole system, in addition to thinking about what we used to traditionally think about in the water resources sector, which is how do you better manage water supply. You have groundwater, you have rainfall, you want to put it together and meet the needs of the domestic users, the industrial users, the agricultural users, and various other users that come along. The fish need water. And the ecology needs water. And again, when we are thinking about water resource management, we have been, for the longest time, thinking about the short term, meaning from a few days to a week, to a few months or so on, to maybe we've been thinking about seasonal as well. But how can we also think about the long term? And how do we bring in, the information from the climate system into all of these things? And how do you take care of droughts, floods, extremes, in addition to the long-term hydrology issues? For example, is it possible that some islands might might have a shortfall of water in the long run because of either climate changes or because of other examples that you'll hear about in this presentation. But this has also sort of been recognized internationally, which is that the climate science-related research needs is hampered by not knowing about future climate changes. If you look at it honestly, of course, there's a lot of statements about what climate change will and will not do. But if as scientists we look at it honestly, the amount of usable information is very limited. You don't have information at the scale at which you're making decisions, for the time step that you're making decisions. There's a lot of usable information that should be used, and we will always have gaps, but we could do a lot better than what we are doing. And because a lot of decisions are being made for adaptation to climate change, but the sort of investment on climate science, I think, has been disproportionately low. We need to know whether we are adapting to wetter or drier conditions. That at least we should know the sign. So there are, I don't need to go on regarding the various sustainability issues here. So that's, I think, would be how I would frame, how climate, water, and the need to think about it on a larger scale comes in, and why we need to do better in terms of the climate science. And I would encourage the younger participants here to think about, going into this a lot more deeply than what you would, be exposed in your curriculum. So then switching gears now, and to talk a little bit about what is FECT and what are we doing here. I think about 10 years ago, I came to the Maldives, 12 years ago, to participate in a workshop on climate change and health. And I was, it was organized by WMO, WHO, and NOAA. And so I came as the climate expert to talk about climate to health participants. It was held at Bandos. So, and at that time, I met a lot of officials, including from the Met Service, the director at that time, or deputy director at that time, and also other officials in the health sector, as well as Dr. Mizna, who was not doctor yet, right? So, so we discussed, and I was always highly interested in what we could do. And so when an invitation came to Columbia University, where I was working at that time, to contribute for climate science from a few ministries, actually, from the Ministry of Environment and also the Ministry to do with economy at that time. So I was very happy, so I just jumped in, came, and we started with a proposal. The ministry at that time was very interested in setting up a climate change desk to aid with decision making and also training the younger scientists. So that was how I got involved. I prepared a proposal, and then I was able to talk to folks in the Met Service and various other agencies, including right from the very beginning, the MCHE, the College of Higher Education. And through that, what happened was that we were trying to obtain funding for a program in sustainable development, a master's program in sustainable development at Peradeniya University. And it was part of a global network of 22 universities. So internationally as well, you don't have really good educational programs where someone can learn about the interaction from diverse sectors, whether it's from management, social sciences, health, engineering, and so on. So, about 8 years ago, there was that's a different MDP, of course. So they had a call for proposals, and about 80 proposals came in, and one of the ones that was granted was the proposal from Peradeniya, for which by that time the Ministry of Environment had given a letter of support. And so we had presented it as a program. The special feature about the Sri Lanka program would be that it would also cover small islands and coastal areas. And so that was established. And we have since then had interns coming from the program. And also, I think the lady in this bottom right corner, she's from Maldives. So that was one of the things that we had anticipated would be Maldivian students going over for this program. And I would encourage the students at the Bachelor's of Environmental Management to seriously consider that program. I mean, you have the same program in Columbia, Emory, Berkeley, James Cook, and so on and on. So you get really high quality education close by for 1/100th of the price cost. So that was going on, and then it was at that time that we applied for there was a new proposal program from the National Academy of Sciences, which invited proposals for related to sustainable development, which would capitalize on the kind of research that was being done in the United States, funded by the National Science Foundation. And so how it works is that you would find a US partner, and then you would come up with a scientific question that relates to sustainable development challenges. And the one that, and of course the whole program is funded by USAID, Washington. And so 4 or 5 years ago, we decided that there had been a very large program called Dynamo. I think the Ministry of Environment knows about it, that there were climate scientists who were based in GAN, and ships, planes, satellite, all kinds of instruments were set up in GAN. And so then I knew one of the folks who was working at GAN, one of the professors at Columbia. So I said, and he himself said, we have this big, multi-million NSF project, but there is no, and it's about a feature that is immediately important to Maldives, which is we have this thing called the Madden-Julian Oscillation, which actually starts near Africa, and first landfall is in Maldives, then Sri Lanka, then across the world, and it goes all the way to the US, or to the Americas. So the proposal was then to see what the impact would be on the Maldives and on Sri Lanka, and they were very happy with that because it was plugging a gap, which was you had this $10 million project, but you're not making use of all of that scientific information for the people at the doorstep of the MJO. So this program is coming to an end now, but I'll later on talk about what we've been able to learn about, the relationship of that phenomenon with Maldives climate. And what we proposed at that time was to do flood measurements or flood management in a small catchment in Sri Lanka, and drought in Malé, the greater Malé area. And that was because the funding was very limited. So anyway, so that was our first proposal, and we had interns from this MDP program come over. And so then we had another proposal which looked at the there were two other proposals, one which looked at the regional meteorology with the University of Notre Dame, and a third one, we also got in the second phase of the peer program, the USAID office in Sri Lanka and Maldives decided to support this overall program locally with a focus on the Maldives. And through that program, we were able to get funding for drought monitoring and climate change assessment in Sri Lanka and the Maldives. This fund has a lot more work on the ground in the Maldives, and we are just starting out. So we have to thank the USAID folks for that. And I think Nihani Riza will speak a lot more about that program. While you have the proposals and projects so that you could actually get some resources to do this work, we've been also doing ongoing work, which is capturing information about the current state of the climate as relevant for the general users with the help of the Maldivian Meteorological Service and also the International Research Institute for Climate and Society, and have been issuing this monthly report about what's going on with the climate and trying to interpret it. We've not, of course, just blown it up. We've circulated by email. But I hope that, at least from this workshop, we would have a few more, not what I would call users, but interpreters of this climate report. I think that will be something that that can benefit. That is useful even for the general audience. In addition, one of the things that I would point to is a monitoring tool. So there is a lot of satellite-based estimates of climate, and which is at a lot more detail than what we are able to get observations of. The coverage for Maldives is quite fine scale as far as meteorologists go, but it may not be as fine scale when you look at it from the ground up, say, looking at it from mosquito or whatever. But things are a lot more usable. And that cluster of words is just the island names. It's just to show that, we've been able to actually capture the Maldives. That's the hardest thing, is that you go and look at all the global maps, you don't see the Maldives, right? And the climate analysis is done at sometimes at 250-kilometer grid. You just miss the Maldives. So, it's not by design. My colleagues who do this, they said, but it doesn't come automatically. So we worked with them to actually put in the Maldives. Because from the perspective of climate science also, it's very important that we see what's happening in the oceans and it gets validated. And what happens is if you don't have users in the oceans, so from a global point of view, it's very important. There is a whole bunch of sustainability challenges that are there, and all of these things we'll hear about some of them, maybe the items at the top, but there is a lot more issues that are coming up, and it requires a lot of work, not only from people who come and do the projects and go away, but also from, as I keep saying, you need people on the ground to interpret, interact with the media, talk to the press, explain it in the way. Otherwise, what can happen is that, you can say something, but it can be miscommunicated and not used properly. So that is my summary of the background to this workshop. So again, to repeat, so the goals is really to bring together expertise on climate and water along with junior scientists and review the scientific and development work, or scientific work and development-related work that is being done, identify gaps, needs, and opportunities for research and education going into the future. And we will follow up. The proceedings shall be prepared. Some of the proceedings shall be captured as educational material, and there shall be sustained engagement via the internet. So, and I invite you to, register on our website through Facebook or Twitter or whatever, so that we can keep the engagement going into the future. Once again, let me thank the distinguished speakers, the State Minister, Mr. Abdul Mateen, all of you officials from who have taken off, your. I'm sure you had a busy Sunday morning to things to attend. For you to take the time to come and accept the invitation of the Maldives National University, in fact, and also to the students, I really extend a welcome for this workshop on the behalf of FACT. Thank you very much.